Welcome to this explainer. Look, today we're diving straight into a topic that honestly affects every single property owner in the Carolina Piedmont, but it rarely gets the attention it deserves until water is literally dripping from your living room ceiling. We're going to unpack the very specific threats, the unique environmental pressures, and the surprisingly high costs facing homeowners when it comes to roofing right here in Rock Hill. It's a pretty complex landscape, but don't worry, we've mapped the whole thing out for you.
So let's jump right into this really pressing question. What is actually destroying roofs in Rock Hill? Because I'll tell you, the true culprits behind local roof failures are way more complex than just a random rainstorm or some aging shingles. It's really this perfect storm of intense climate swings, serious structural stressors, and hidden damages that just compound over time. Understanding how these underlying forces work is absolutely crucial to protecting your home. Here's our roadmap for today. First, we'll look at the Carolina Climate Challenge. Second, the anatomy of roof damage. Third, we're getting into the economics of roofing. And finally, smart hiring and scam prevention. Starting off with Section 1, the Carolina Climate Challenge, and how to actually survive these Piedmont weather patterns. Now, to survive this weather, we really have to look at the big picture. And interestingly enough, the biggest threat to your roof actually starts right under your feet. That reddish Piedmont clay soil we have all over York County, it acts a lot like a giant sponge. It aggressively expands when it soaks up moisture during heavy rains, and then it sharply contracts when it dries out. This constant back and forth literally moves your home's foundation. And when your foundation shifts, that movement transfers structural stress straight up into your roof framing. You are quite literally fighting a battle from the ground up. And it's not just the shifting soil. Different neighborhoods face their own crazy microclimates. You've got those sudden summer thunderstorms that just roll through without warning, dropping damaging hail. If you happen to live near Dave Lyle Boulevard or along the I-77 corridor, your property is taking a beating from intense wind exposure because of the open terrain. On the flip side, homes over in Manchester Village or the Riverwalk area near the Catawba River, they are battling this incredibly high humidity year-round, which accelerates shingle deterioration and wood rot. Toss in those winter freeze-thaw cycles that turn a microscopic crack into a massive leak overnight, and, well, you can see why standard roofing solutions just don't cut it around here. Moving on to Section 2, Anatomy of Roof Damage. Let's look at how this weather physically breaks down your materials. It's essentially a massive chain reaction of damage. High winds from those sudden summer storms will grab and lift the shingles at the corners and edges, completely snapping those waterproof seals. And here's the scary part. Once that wind gets under just a single shingle, the ones right next to it become incredibly vulnerable, leaving your delicate underlayment totally exposed to the elements. And the assault doesn't stop with the wind. There are very specific physical damages you need to be on the lookout for. We just talked about wind-lifted shingles, but hail bruising is just as dangerous. Hail impacts actually weaken the shingles and knock off their protective granules. It might not leak the very next day, but the integrity is gone. Also remember that shifting clay soil we talked about? That movement causes your ridge caps to literally crack and your roof valleys to separate. And finally, there's the silent killer, poor attic airflow. In our intense Rock Hill summer heat, bad ventilation traps all that heat and moisture, literally cooking your roof from the inside out and causing wood rot. All right, let's jump to Section 3, the economics of roofing. We need to demystify these numbers because, let's face it, this is a major investment. So what is the actual damage to your wallet going to look like? For a standard 2,000 square foot home in our area, you're looking at a range somewhere between $6,000 and $14,000. Now, why such a massive gap? Well, your final price depends heavily on the materials you choose, like standard asphalt versus metal, how steep your roof's pitch is, and just how complex the job is. Think about things like the number of chimneys or skylights. Even just a basic 20 by 20 detached one-car garage is going to run you between $1,200 and $3,000. And here is a number that absolutely shocks people: 40 to 50%. That is how much of your total bill is made up entirely of labor. It's really easy to think you're just paying for stacks of shingles, but what you're actually paying for is the highly skilled work required to safely tear off the old roof, install really complex flashing around valleys to stop leaks, and properly nail down high wind-rated shingles to meet some very strict local building codes. Because while basic 3-tab asphalt shingles might seem like a bargain, it's the hidden under-the-hood structural and code factors that really drive up that final price tag. I mean, if water damage has rotted out your plywood decking, that has to be replaced. Plus, the International Residential Code has very strict rules on ventilation, specifically 1 square foot of ventilation for every 150 square feet of attic space. If your house isn't up to code, upgrading that airflow adds cost, even though it definitely prevents premature failure down the road. Add in the structural repairs needed from that settling clay soil, plus the premium underlayment you need for storm protection, and you can see how the costs naturally start to stack up.
Which brings us to our fourth and final section, smart hiring and scam prevention. Consider this your homeowner's playbook. A real, legitimate roofing professional is always going to follow this standard 3-step process. Number 1, a comprehensive inspection, which absolutely must include checking inside your attic and documenting any damage with photos. Number 2, a professional, code-compliant installation. That means they are pulling the proper York County building permits and following the manufacturer's exact specifications. And number 3, the job simply isn't done until they do a final cleanup, using magnetic sweeps to grab all those loose nails, followed by a detailed walkthrough, and handing you your written warranties for both the materials and the labor.
But you know how it goes. Severe weather rolls through Rock Hill, and suddenly the storm chasers come out of the woodwork. You have got to watch out for contractors flashing these massive red flags. If a roofer demands full payment upfront, won't give you a written contract, or tries to pressure you into deciding right that second, just walk away. Another massive warning sign is a contractor who refuses to pull local building permits. Rock Hill follows North Carolina building codes, which actually mandate that your roof has to withstand sustained winds of up to 110 miles per hour. If someone tries to skip those permits, claiming it'll save you money, they are leaving your house totally vulnerable, and your insurance company might just straight up refuse to cover any future storm damage.
Now, when you're actually talking to a contractor, your words matter immensely. To keep your leverage during negotiations, there are a few things you should absolutely never say. Never ever reveal your maximum budget up front. Don't tell them you haven't gotten any other estimates. Never admit that you don't understand roofing terminology or the contract details, and definitely don't just say, do whatever you think is best without getting written specifications. Instead, you want to ask really specific questions about underlayment, about ventilation, and about flashing. If they give you a vague answer, that's your cue to find someone else.
Here is the absolute reality of property maintenance today. Waiting rarely saves you money, especially in a booming market like Rock Hill. Inflation, the high demand for labor, and unpredictable supply chains are constantly pushing material cost higher. So putting off this critical maintenance is practically a guarantee that you'll pay more later. A minor issue that's caught early can often be fixed with a localized restoration, which might buy your roof another 5 to 10 years. But if you ignore it, well, those freeze-thaw cycles and brutal summer storms are going to turn that little leak into a complete structural failure. So I want to leave you with this one thought. Now that you know the incredibly specific pressures this Carolina climate puts on your home, from the expanding clay soil underneath you to the 110-mile-per-hour winds above you, are you going to take proactive steps today, or are you going to wait for the weather to step in and make a very expensive decision for you? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. Use this info to protect your home and stay proactive out there.